All right, y'all. I have multiple videos that I want to do today, and I am going to start with the most spicy one. So, this video is called the Down Low Shadow Double Lives Split Identity and Psychic Catfishing in the Digital Age. So, introduction, who I am, and why this conversation matters. Before we begin, certainly going to need some disclaimers. I've been studying this topic for, I don't know, probably a year now. And so this is my absolute master video script on this. Hopefully it's coherent. Hopefully I only have to do one take. So before we begin, I want to be very clear about the lens of this conversation. Because this is not a video about shaming, outing, or labeling anyone. My name is Heather, and this channel is called Underwater Panther. The work I do here lives at the intersection of astro-psychology, moral cognition, shadow integration, power dynamics, and cultural patterning. I study how hidden systems, psychological, relational, and institutional, shape behavior long before people are conscious of them. This video is not just about sexual orientation. It's not about demonizing men, and it's not about moral panic. It's about secrecy, split identity, and what happens to human behavior when truth becomes unsafe. The term down low has been used culturally to describe hidden sexual behavior. But in this conversation, I'm using it as a metaphor for a much larger phenomenon: double lives, suppressed identity, performative masculinity, emotional secrecy, and the psychological cost of living behind a mask. This pattern has existed throughout history across governments, religions, families, relationships, and institutions. It didn't begin with dating apps or social media. What's new is that the containers that used to hold secrecy have collapsed, and the shadow is coming into the light. That matters not because of morality, but because secrecy always has consequences. This video exists because many people, especially women, are paying real costs for hidden lives they didn't consent to participate in. Emotional cost, health risk, time loss, psychological harm, and confusion that makes people doubt their own intuition. At the same time, many men are trapped inside identities they never felt safe integrating. They were taught to perform strength while suppressing vulnerability, tenderness, or truth. That fracture doesn't disappear, it goes underground. So, this is a systems level conversation. We're going to talk about how masculine and feminine energies fragment in both men and women, how patriarchy created top-down repression, and how it's now reproducing bottom-up chaos. How secrecy functions psychologically, why double lives aren't about orientation, but about safety, shame, and power, and what healthy integration actually looks like for everyone. This is not a call out video. I'm going to leave that to the hundreds and hundreds of videos online. I am certainly going to talk about this probably in the most depth that you will ever hear. And I am not here to gain knee jerk reactions. I want to have a very mature conversation about this, as immature as it can be. So, this is a clarity video. If this conversation feels uncomfortable, it's because it's touching material that was never meant to stay buried forever. So, let's begin. So, we're going to start by defining the topic without collapsing into stigma. I want to start by making this conversation extremely clear because the internet has a habit of turning nuanced topics into weapons. This video is not about hating gay men, bisexual men, straight men, or anyone's orientation. It is not a justification for homophobia. It is not a witch hunt. And it is not me claiming that everyone is secretly something. This is a psychological and cultural analysis of the double life, what people call down low culture. But I'm going to name it more precisely: split identity and compartmentalized living. Because the down low isn't just about sex. Sex is only one arena where split identity shows up. The deeper phenomenon is the construction of a public persona while living a private reality that contradicts it, often fueled by shame, fear, social pressure, and image management. The harm does not come from anyone's orientation. The harm comes from deception, non-consent, coercion, and using power over people as a cover. If you're watching this and you've ever had that feeling something isn't adding up, this isn't meant to intensify paranoia. It's meant to restore discernment. And it's also meant to widen the lens because what we call down low has a modern technological equivalent now. AI content farms, fake authority, synthetic empathy, and what I'm calling psychic catfishing. People forming emotional attachments to illusions, aka deep fake reality. So we're going to map this carefully layer by layer. Why this matters now. The down low is not new. What's new is the level of visibility and the level of distortion. We are living in an era where institutions have lost credibility, identity has become performative, and technology has made it easier than ever to construct a persona with almost no accountability. At the same time, people are lonelier, more dysregulated, and more desperate for meaning than they want to admit. When those conditions exist, double lives multiply, not because humans become worse, but because the environment rewards masking and punishes truth. And when a culture is full of masking, trust collapses. Relationships become suspicious, not intimate. People begin bonding with performance instead of presence. The nervous system cannot relax because it keeps sensing incongruence. That's the real story here: incongruence at scale. All right, so we're going to break down what down low actually means. And first, I am going to stir my coffee. It is still extremely hot, I think. Yeah, it's still too hot, darn. All right, I got to let that cool down. I'm going to take a drink of water. All right, so what down low actually means. Structural definition. Let's define terms in a way that doesn't reduce everything to sexuality. In this video, down low means a split between public identity and private reality, maintained through secrecy, compartmentalization, and image management. This can show up in sexuality. It can also show up in addictions, finances, politics, religion, family systems, or online personas. The category is not who someone is, the category is how someone lives. A down low pattern is not private. Privacy is healthy. Privacy is boundaries, personal space, and consent. A down low pattern is secrecy that hides contradictions that affect other people, especially where consent and risk are involved. So, when someone is living two lives, they don't just hide one behavior. They build an entire emotional architecture around hiding. That architecture typically includes denial, deflection, rage when questioned, manipulation, and a constant need to control how they are perceived. Now, after I created my videos last night, I was uploading my videos here on YouTube, and I literally had a really good analogy. I'm gonna see if I can find that note real quick. Okay, so I'm just gonna read you like I to come up with videos, I just have moments of like I just write whatever I'm thinking. It doesn't have to be in sentence. It's kind of like mind mapping. I'm not really sure what you call it, but I just kind of like vomit all over my notepad. And so this might not exactly make sense, but I'm going to read it to you. All right. So why has down low culture exploded now? So I ask a series of questions. I get a topic in my head, ask a series of questions to kind of like form the video, frame the video. And so, all right, I am going to make okay, so I'll keep it all right. So I'm like saying that I'm going to keep it educational. I don't want to take it personal. I'm not going to give you why I am diving into this topic. I want to keep this educational, not personal. All right. So, but honestly, there's barely any other subject that infuriates me more. I am an Aquarius, 11th house Mercury, and this topic really does it is very triggering. I'm not going to lie, and I'm not trying to trigger anyone. But for me personally, it's infuriating because there's nothing that makes me more upset than fake people. Number 1. Number 2, I can't stand liars. And number 3, precious wasted time is spent on these types of people. So these people remind me, down low people, remind me of an ancient empty castle filled with cobwebs from the lies they weave over their whole life. I'm like really into architecture. I love watching people explore abandoned buildings and castles. So like this is where my mind went. People come in to explore only to talk about who used to live there, wondering why everything is in shambles in the first place. Because it's a lack of care and abandonment, disconnection. So yeah, just like this topic just kind of reminds me of an empty person, like a huge empty castle that is full of cobwebs, and people are kind of like wanting to explore it, and they're like, "Wow, this is very empty. How did it get in shambles?" It's just they're very empty people inside, and it's very sad. It reminds me of the narcissism topic, and anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there. I thought that analogy was kind of funny. All right, so when someone is living two lives, they don't just hide one behavior, so they build an entire emotional architecture around hiding. That architecture typically includes denial, deflection, rage when questioned, manipulation, and a constant need to control how they are perceived. This is why the down low isn't just personal, it becomes relational harm. In this video, down low means, so I will kind of repeat myself a little bit, but we need to continue circling back to really get the information integrated into understanding. So it means double life, split persona, hidden identity, compartmentalized behavior, image management replacing integrity. This can show up in sexuality, but it also shows up in money, addictions, family systems, politics, religion, institutions, online personas, and virtue performance. So I do get extremely deep into so many different topics. This has been going on throughout history forever. This is nothing new. And the deeper that you dive into this topic, the more you realize how It involves government, it involves blackmail, it involves trafficking of humans, and it gets very dark. It gets extremely dark. I'm just going to brush over that and towards the end of this video, but I just wanted to throw an FYI out there. All right, so the down low is not just sexual secrecy, it's secrecy as a lifestyle. And when secrecy becomes a lifestyle, people don't just hide one thing, they build an entire reality around hiding. That's where manipulation begins. So, I do want to say one thing personally. My very best guy friend in high school, he's gay. He's always been gay. He wasn't outwardly gay. We all knew. We took each other to prom every year in my high school years. He could dance. He was a model. Like it was nothing ever weird. It was just like a fun time. I trusted him. And honestly, I do want to say that I am a very masculine woman by nature, by emotion, by the way I think. Aries rising, Capricorn stellium. I know that's feminine, but that's a very masculine feminine. Aquarian Mercury. So I'm very masculine percentage wise in my own self, and I absolutely love seeing the feminine in anyone, men and women. I am totally fine with men being gay. Just do not lie to me. Do not lie to other people. That is all I'm asking. And that's why I'm covering this topic because I didn't know about it until a year ago. I live in the country. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I've been sheltered my whole life. I was raised in a private Catholic school. Like, I still to this day talk to people in person, asking, "Do you know, hey, have you ever heard this term?" And they're like, "No, I've never heard of it." So, like, I'm not the only one that is like now brushing up on this topic. And it's very unfortunate and it can be very, very dangerous. And so I'm going to be breaking this down, explaining the masculine and feminine in both men and women, the toxic versions, the healthy versions, how to integrate it, red flags, you name it. This video is going to probably be kind of long. So, sorry for segueing. I think that's the last time. So, let's jump back into it. The split self, how double lives form. Double lives form when a person learns consciously or unconsciously, if they see the real me, I will lose love, status, resources, belonging, or safety. That belief doesn't always come from dramatic trauma. Sometimes it comes from 1,000 small reinforcements: shame, ridicule, religious pressure, rigid masculinity norms, or a family culture where image mattered more than truth. So the psyche does something intelligent. It splits. It creates a public self that is socially acceptable and a private self where disowned desire, emotion, and truth are stored. Over time, those two selves stop talking to each other. The public self becomes the mask, and the private self becomes the shadow life. And when a person lives like this long enough, the split becomes addictive. Not because the behavior is pleasurable, but because secrecy becomes a source of adrenaline and control. The double life starts to feel like safety. Exposure starts to feel like death. This is the psychological root: identity instability managed through performance. Why it's coming to light now. Down low is not new. What's new is visibility. Three things changed: surveillance, culture, and digital evidence. Phones, messages, apps, screenshots, and receipts. People cannot sustain a double life the way they used to. Number two, masculinity is collapsing as a stable external role. For centuries, masculinity was externally scaffolded by provider identity, social authority, clear gender roles, religion as a moral cover, and community pressure to conform. Those scaffolds are breaking, but the internal development never replaced them. So many men are left with desire they never integrated, emotion they never learned to name, intimacy they don't know how to hold, and identity they perform rather than embody. I went down too far in my notes. All right, and number 3, hyper public identity culture. We live in an era where identity is marketed. Being seen is currency, and that makes the double life both easier to construct and more catastrophic to expose. I'm like dying to have this coffee. I'm gonna stir it around a little bit more. All right, so secrecy escalates, and when it collapses, the fallout is larger. The core mechanism, shame performance equals split self. This is the center of the whole topic. A split self forms when a person learns, if they see the real me, I will lose love, status, safety, or belonging. So they adapt, perform what is accepted, hide what is true, compartmentalize instead of integrate. Over time, two selves develop: the public self, approved, performative, and protected, and the private self, unapproved, hidden, often acted out compulsively. That split is psychologically exhausting, and it makes intimacy almost impossible because intimacy requires being known, authentic. A person with a split self doesn't bond through truth, they bond through control. Huge red flag. Why sex becomes the most common shadow arena. Sex is one of the most policed areas of human life. It is tied to shame, morality, power, identity, religion, status, and belonging. So when someone has a split self, sexuality becomes an easy place for the shadow to leak. But we have to say this carefully. Orientation is real. Desire is real. Sexual fluidity is real. None of that is inherently deceptive. The harm begins when sexuality becomes a secret world that is acted out while other people are used as props, covers, beards, when a woman is a man's beard, covers, or stabilizers. That's why down low topic becomes so charged because it sits right at the intersection of truth, consent, shame, and betrayal. People aren't traumatized by the existence of desire. They're traumatized by the experience of realizing they were in a relationship with someone's persona rather than their actual self. And that's the core psychic fraud. The masculinity collapse layer, why this pattern is so widespread. Now, let's talk about the modern masculine environment because this is a real ingredient. Many men were not raised by emotional, mature, initiated masculine role models. They were raised by absent fathers, emotionally unavailable fathers, volatile fathers, or fathers who equated masculinity with dominance and silence. Many were raised in households where the mother was overwhelmed, the family system was unstable, and emotional truth wasn't modeled as safety. This doesn't create any orientation. What it creates is emotional underdevelopment plus performance masculinity. When a man is trained to see vulnerability as humiliation, he often develops a relationship to truth that is defensive. He becomes more invested in appearing masculine than embodying masculinity. So he manages image, not integrity. This is such a deep topic. All right. So a split self is more likely to emerge in a culture where men are punished for softness, punished for emotional truth, and rewarded for dominance based identity. Then add modern pressures, economic instability, shifting gender roles, loss of traditional authority, and you get a population of men who are not initiated into maturity but are still expected to lead. That gap produces compensations, rage, withdrawal, hypersexuality, secret worlds, and double lives. I'm trying to speak slowly because this is like a very dense topic. I just lost my spot. Okay, so this is not a moral condemnation, it's a structural diagnosis. The collapse of masculine identity. So most modern men were not raised by initiated, emotionally present, or mature masculine role models. They were instead raised by emotionally unavailable fathers, abusive fathers, absent fathers, mothers who were overwhelmed, households without structure. Without a model for healthy masculinity, men formed identity through porn, friends, media, survival coping, and secret behaviors. So they express masculinity through impulse and shadow, not maturity. This creates sexual confusion and emotional repression and double lives. Men are not taught emotional truth. Men are taught don't feel, don't talk, don't admit desire, and don't appear weak. So desire becomes hidden, acted on in the dark, split off from their identity, and repressed until it leaks out sideways. When a man has to hide feelings his whole life, he also hides desire. This is the psychological root of the down low phenomenon. Why sex becomes a primary shadow arena. So, sex is one of the most policed human domains. Like I said, I'm going to kind of be repeating things. I will edit this. If y'all actually want me to upload this book, I will probably do it for free because that is how like critical this information is. So just let me know if you're interested in me editing this better and putting it into a better format in order to upload it on my website because I will do it for free. Just let me know down in the comments. Or you can email me so it's more private. No shame. I'm here for you, believe me. All right, so sex is one of the most policed human domains. It's tied to shame, status, power, identity, morality, and fear of exposure. So it becomes the perfect arena for the split self to express. This is why the down low conversation appears sexual, because sexuality is where repression leaks out. But the real issue isn't what someone likes. It's deception, coercion, lack of consent, using partners as covers, putting others at risk while hiding reality, and collapsing responsibility into secrecy. That is the harm. The shame engine: religion, family image, and social consequence. Shame is the fuel that keeps the down low pattern alive. I need to get a little more comfortable. My foot's cold. All right, so shame is the fuel that keeps the down low pattern alive. Shame says, I cannot be seen. Shame creates secrecy. Secrecy creates compartmentalization. Compartmentalization creates double life behavior. This is why environments that moralize sexuality without giving people safe pathways for integration often produce more secrecy, not more virtue. Shame doesn't eliminate desire. My mind is going straight to all these churches. Sex is repressed and shamed, and what do you freaking get? Nasty ass men. So it forces desire underground, and anything forced underground tends to mutate into power dynamics, compulsions, and risk taking. When people are taught that being seen equals losing everything, family approval, social status, and career stability, truth becomes too expensive. So they buy privacy with deception. The masculinity architecture behind double lives. All right. So many men were not raised with emotional fluency, initiated masculinity, consent, literacy, and relational accountability. They were raised with performance masculinity, dominance as safety, shame around softness, and fear of being seen. When a man cannot tolerate vulnerability, he often chooses a persona, an addiction, a secret life, and an image relationship. Because real intimacy requires truth, and truth requires the ability to be known without collapsing. So the down low becomes an intimacy substitute. The mother father pattern without pathologizing women. This is just like through and through a really rough conversation. All right. My mind is going somewhere. My mind keeps going on the narcissism topic, and I've studied that for years in depth. All right. So it's true that early family dynamics influence whether someone becomes a performer, a truth teller, or a compartmentalizer. But I'm going to frame this carefully. The point is not to blame mothers or fathers. The point is to describe how children learn whether authenticity is safe. A child raised in a home where emotional truth leads to punishment learns to hide. A child raised in a home where image matters more than reality learns to perform. A child raised in a home where adults are inconsistent learns to maintain multiple selves to survive. So the mother wound isn't mom made him this way, it's the broader family system pattern where love is conditional, emotions are unsafe, and the child becomes responsible for managing the adult environment. Now, I look into this so deeply. I have many, many birth charts, and I can see where men's mother wounds are. And this is a very delicate topic. I do not suggest that you call a man out if you think he is. They're going to be triggered and they're going to be rageful. And yeah, just be very cautious about this topic. So that produces adult humans who manage perception instead of practicing transparency. That's the foundation of the down low pattern across domains, not just sex. All right, so I'm going to recap that again. So family dynamics matter, but we'll frame it cleanly. A split persona often forms in homes where love was conditional, image mattered, contradiction was punished, and honesty created conflict instead of repair. Some people learn early, I must manage perception to survive. That can come from authoritarian parenting, religious shame, emotionally enmeshed households when a man is extremely enmeshed with his mother, acting like the mother's husband rather than a son. Volatile fathers, fragile masculinity in the home, mothers who relied on sons emotionally, enmeshment, parents who punished emotional truth. This does not produce gay or straight, it produces compartmentalization. And compartmentalization is the soil of double lives. The down low pattern is almost always linked to the mother wound, as well as narcissism. I'm not blaming mothers. It's just something to be aware of. We all have our own choices in life. No matter what happens to you, no matter what trauma you have, you always have a choice in your behavior. I do want to repeat that over and over. When a boy has an overwhelming mother, a controlling mother, a mother who used him emotionally, a mother who emasculated his father, and a mother who with inconsistent support, he learns to perform to be loved, hide his true self, build a false identity, avoid disappointing authority, and live two lives. This is the foundation of the down low personality. Trauma around sex and shame equals split sexuality. Many men, more than you know, were sexually shamed, sexually confused, exposed to porn too early. molested or boundary broken, emotionally neglected. This stunts sexual development. So instead of sexual identity forming organically, it forms around trauma, secrecy, power, and shame. This creates secret sexual impulses, compartmentalized desire, double lives, shame driven addiction, attraction to danger or taboo. Down low behavior is usually not about orientation. It's about unresolved trauma and secrecy. The pressure to look hyper masculine. Men, especially, I'm sorry, I'm listening to music. It's a little comforting. All right. So, men, especially Black men, Latino men, Southern men, conservative households, and religious households, are conditioned that masculinity equals dominance, silence, and straightness. So any deviation, even emotional softness, becomes suspect. Instead of exploring sexuality safely, they push it underground. This is why the more homophobic the culture, the more down low behavior exists. It is a paradox. Men are more visually and impulsively driven. Men's sexual instincts run through dopamine, impulse, physicality, and compartmentalization. Men can separate sex, emotion, love, and identity. This makes it easier for them to engage sexually in ways that don't align with their public identity. Women rarely do this. Men do it constantly. All right, so we're moving on into a different section. So we are 35 minutes in. Just in case someone skipped through or whatever the case may be, before we go any further, I'm going to reset the frame for this conversation. Because this topic lives at the intersection of intimacy, identity, power, and harm, and those intersections are easy to distort if we don't slow down. This video is not about shaming men. It is not about blaming women. It is not about condemning sexuality, orientation, or desire. This is about fragmentation, specifically the fragmentation of the feminine and masculine inside human beings, and how that fragmentation expresses itself through secrecy, split identity, deception, and relational harm. Every human psyche contains both masculine and feminine capacities. The masculine represents direction, structure, assertion, protection, and agency. The feminine, receptivity, intuition, embodiment, emotional truth, and relational awareness. When those energies are integrated, people live coherently. When they are suppressed, shamed, or distorted, they split. What many people call down low culture is not a sexual category. It is a symptom of fragmentation in a culture that has never taught people how to integrate their inner polarity safely. It has been shaped by top-down patriarchal systems that punish the feminine, especially in men, and bottom-up adaptations where people learn to survive through masking, performance, and secrecy. The collapse of social and relational containers that once held desire, identity, and maturation. So, these are the symptoms. And if we don't know the symptoms, we never heal the system that produced them. All right, so now we're going to talk about containers, patriarchy, and the fragmentation of the feminine. Were containers ever real, or is this just how humans are? The answer is both. Split identity has always existed to some degree. Wherever shame, hierarchy, or repression exist, people adapt by hiding parts of themselves. But historically, most societies also had containers, structures that marked developmental stages, initiated people into adulthood, regulated sexuality and power, and integrated shadow through ritual, mentorship, and accountability. Containers didn't eliminate shadow, they metabolized it. Rites of passage, apprenticeship, elder mentorship, communal accountability, and spiritual initiation weren't about control. They were about containment. Containment means time, boundaries, sequence, supervision, and shared meaning. When containers exist, people don't have to split themselves to survive. When containers collapse, the psyche absorbs the burden alone. That's when fragmentation accelerates. Oh no, I'm at the end of my playlist. Give me 1 second. I need music for this topic. It's just heavy. It's heavy. I'm sorry. I gotta get to my music playlist. All right, I need a gangster one. All right, so patriarchy, top down and bottom up. Patriarchy is often discussed only as a top down system: laws, institutions, religion, and economics. But patriarchy survives because it also becomes internalized. I'm having a hell of a time scrolling, and it's getting super hot in here. All right. But patriarchy survives because it also becomes internalized. Top-down patriarchy did this: punished vulnerability in men, equated masculinity with dominance, not integration, associated the feminine with weakness, chaos, or danger, and regulated sexuality through shame instead of wisdom. Bottom-up patriarchy reinforced it by teaching men to hide tenderness and intuition, teaching women to overfunction emotionally and relationally, reward performance over truth, and making image safer than honesty. So the system didn't just suppress the feminine, it fragmented it in both men and women. In men, the feminine became hidden, sexualized, shamed, or secret. Intuition became anxiety. Receptivity became passivity or manipulation. Emotional truth became avoidance or rage. In women, the feminine became overextended and unbounded. Intuition became hypervigilance. Empathy became self erasure. And receptivity became tolerance of deception. This is why the conversation cannot stop at toxic masculinity. There's also toxic femininity, and both are products of the same broken container system. Toxic versus integrated masculine and feminine with men and women. Toxic masculine in any gender. Dominance without responsibility, control without protection, sexuality without intimacy, certainty without reflection, image without integrity. This version of masculinity performs strength but avoids accountability. Healthy masculine, clear boundaries, emotional steadiness, truth telling even when costly, leadership rooted in service, protection of others' time, bodies, and dignity. Toxic feminine in any gender, indirectness instead of clarity, emotional manipulation instead of truth, self sacrifice as identity, secrecy framed as intuition, and boundarylessness framed as love. This version of the feminine feels deeply but avoids agency. Healthy feminine, embodied intuition with discernment, emotional honesty without collapse, receptivity paired with self respect, depth without self betrayal, and presence without tolerance of deception. When either polarity is distorted, people don't integrate, they compensate. And compensation always leaks out sideways. So, why this causes real harm, not just drama. It isn't abstract. Split identity causes measurable harm. For women, years lost to relationships built on illusion, delayed fertility choices, emotional exhaustion, increased increased STI and STD risk through non-consensual exposure, erosion of self-trust. How did I not see this? For men, chronic anxiety around exposure, inability to form secure intimacy, addiction to secrecy and stimulation, the enhancing sexual drugs, the porn, the stimulation will just keep amping and amping. Identity instability and deep shame cycles that never resolve. For everyone, breakdown of trust between genders, increased paranoia instead of discernment, relational burnout, and cultural cynicism about love and partnership. Time is a non renewable source. Using someone's time as a cover is not a neutral act. This is why this conversation matters. Now we're going to talk about porn, private fantasy, and the secret world explosion. All right, so now let's talk about modern digital reality. I got to hear that jam again. All right, so porn and algorithmic fantasy environments have changed male arousal patterns, attention spans, and relational expectations. They normalize escalation, novelty, and secrecy. They allow private experimentation without any relational accountability. They reward dopamine, not integration. For someone with shame and emotional immaturity, porn becomes a second world, a hidden identity, a compartmentalized coping mechanism that can quietly replace intimacy. This is not a moral panic statement, it is a nervous system statement. When a person's arousal and relief are increasingly trained in isolation, the cost is relational. The person becomes skilled at stimulation and less skilled at truth. That doesn't automatically produce the download pattern, but it creates the perfect infrastructure for it. Privacy, secrecy, escalation, compartmentalization, and easy access. All right, so porn and algorithmic fantasy environments train novelty seeking, increase secrecy, reduce relational effort, reward escalation, and provide stimulation without vulnerability. If a person already has shame and poor emotional skills, porn becomes a private identity, an untracked world, and a place to act out without accountability. This intensifies the split self. So, again, the issue isn't porn exists, it's what porn becomes inside a dysregulated nervous system. Escape, secrecy, and a second life. So, modern porn has rewired male brains, normalized taboo fantasies, escalated dopamine thresholds, desensitized healthy attraction, made secrecy easy, and made experimentation private. Porn is one of the biggest forces pushing men into bisexual behavior, fluidity, secret fantasies, and down low behavior. Because porn rewards risk and novelty, not truth or intimacy. Men want to be dominant so badly that they avoid being vulnerable with women. So, being with a woman requires emotional presence, communication, intimacy, and vulnerability. Being with a man requires no emotional labor, no intimacy, and no emotional leadership. So many down low men choose routes that avoid vulnerability. not because they're gay, but because they are emotionally immature. They confuse power with desire. This is huge. Men who feel weak, insecure, emasculated, abandoned, and lost often express sexuality through power, not intimacy. Down low behavior is often about domination, control, secrecy, escape, validation, rebellion, and trauma loops, not real attraction. So, how to spot down low as a pattern? This is important. Focus on behavior, not labels. Red flags of a split self, double life pattern. Extreme image management. Everything is optics. Chronic secrecy with no accountability. Two separate worlds that never meet. Inconsistencies that are explained away with anger. Social life you never see. Emotional intimacy avoidance. I hate drama but lives inside drama. Phone behavior that is panic driven, not privacy driven. Overperformance of masculinity as a defense. So that one would be like homophobia. They're like, screaming, oh my gosh, I hate gay men. And they're entirely projecting. If they have to run around screaming that they hate gay men and that they are masculine, they are most likely either gay, down low, and definitely not very masculine, FYI. Moralizing others while refusing transparency. Rage when asked simple, clarifying questions. Relationships that feel like a front rather than a bond. The issue is not privacy. Privacy is healthy. The issue is secrecy used to hide contradictions that harm other people. All right, download deception checklist. So we're going to go into it a little bit deeper. All right, so integrity and transparency red flags. Stories don't match over time. Details shift, timelines blur. Basic questions trigger defensiveness or rage. Chronic misunderstandings that always benefit them. Refusal to define reality clearly keeps everything ambiguous. Apologizes without behavioral change. Secrecy that functions as power, not privacy. So large chunks of time unaccounted for with vague explanations. You're controlling used to shut down reasonable questions when they're calling you controlling, actually they're controlling. You're consistently kept out of key areas of their life. Image management over intimacy. Relationships feels performative or for optics, heavy emphasis on how things look to others, public persona radically different from private behavior, uses you as proof of status, not as a partner. Show flashing you around. Emotional inaccessibility patterns. Avoids depth, shutdowns when you ask real questions, bonds through intensity, love bombing, not consistency. You feel alone even when they're present, uses sex, humor, or distraction to avoid emotional intimacy. Accountability avoidance, blames everyone else for patterns, no learning curve, repeats the same harm, minimizes your concerns as drama or overthinking, refuses to repair, only wants you to drop it. Risk behavior and compartmentalization, secret accounts, hidden apps, hidden contacts, a whole other phone or two, hidden money behavior or unclear finances, addictive patterns with secrecy, substances, porn, gambling, etc. I don't remember around major boundary violations. Extremely high expectations and them not having any follow through on their end. Like the controlling thing is a huge, huge one. Safety rule of thumb. One red flag isn't a diagnosis, a pattern is. If you consistently feel confused, anxious, destabilized, like you're chasing clarity, that is data. You don't need proof of everything. You need a consistent reality you can trust. So they are constantly trying to destabilize your nervous system. That is also a narcissistic thing, and they are now arguing that most narcissistic men are down low. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a lot of people saying that at this point. So the down low is a cultural metaphor, the split persona era. Now widen the lens. The down low is not only sexual. We are now living in a split persona culture. People live one life in public and another in private. Institutions preach one set of morals and practice another. Brands sell virtue while exploiting labor. Platforms and money. Donations. Platforms sell connection while engineering addiction. Politicians perform morality while operating through power incentives. The pattern is the same: persona over truth. This is why this topic matters, because the down low isn't a niche scandal. It's the cultural template. And once a culture normalizes performance over integrity, people stop trusting each other, even in intimate relationships. Psychic, catfishing, AI, fake authority, and synthetic intimacy. I wrote a whole 70-page book on deepfakes. It is absolutely terrifying to me. Now let's name the modern technological version of down low culture. AI content farms are down low technology. Fake faces, fake voices, fake empathy, fake authority, synthetic channeling, coaching, or healing. People are forming real emotional attachments to simulated intimacy. This is psychic catfishing. And it matters because it distorts relationship expectations, polarity work, healing journeys, and trust itself. When people bond to illusion, they begin to expect humans to behave like illusions. Perfectly soothing, perfectly validating, always available, never complex, never contradictory. This makes real relationships feel disappointing by comparison. This is how fantasy becomes a prison. It keeps people orbiting stimulation instead of reality. So I'm just going to briefly go over this topic. I'm not going to get too deep. I might later in my life, but I don't know. I've studied it deeply. It's not really something that I want to get too deep on my own personal channel, but corruption, trafficking, and the institutional down low. All right, so here's so we're going to delve into we don't want to delve into ungrounded claims. So that's like, it's something that it's like we have proof, we're getting more proof. There's a lot, like it's just a really rough topic. All right, so human trafficking is real, exploitation is real, corruption exists, and across history, one of the most consistent patterns is that large institutions often polarize reputation, management, liability containment, and narrative control over transparency. So this doesn't require everyone is in on it. It requires incentives. When systems reward silence, punish whistleblowers, and protect reputation as the highest value, secrecy becomes structural. The institution becomes down low. So that's the top, bigger version. One face presented to the public, another reality operating behind it. So, yes, corruption and trafficking exist. The takeaway is discernment, the ability to evaluate incentives, demand accountability, and refuse emotional outsourcing. All right, so I don't want to get too deep. I don't want to get dinged here on YouTube. I don't really have a solid footing on that topic. It's top down, it's bottom up, it's disgusting. It's such a disgusting topic. So anyways, it's just I wanted to briefly go over that. So anyways, orientation versus deception, the real bottom line. So this is not necessarily just about orientation. This is about deception. A person living truthfully, straight, gay, bisexual, fluid does not create the harm. The harm comes from secrecy that violates consent, double lives that use other people as cover, power over truth, and performance over intimacy. Download behavior is not being gay. Download behavior is living split and making others pay the cost. That's what destroys relationships. That's what fractures trust. That's what creates cultural exhaustion. So, how to protect yourself without becoming paranoid. So, the goal of this video was not to make women afraid of men or men afraid of themselves. The goal is to restore discernment. The way you protect yourself is not by policing someone's identity. It's by watching for incongruence, the red flags, secrecy, image management, lack of accountability, and unwillingness to be known. When someone is integrated, they don't need a complex persona. I'm in Harry's Rising, man. I am blunt and direct as it gets. They don't need constant cover. They don't need to manage perception aggressively. They can be seen. And that's the real opposite of download culture. It's not exposure, it's coherence. So, in closing, the antidote to download culture, personal and institutional, is integration. Trust without performance, desire without deception, intimacy without cover, and power without secrecy. Because the opposite of a split persona isn't confession, it's the ability to live one life. And in a culture addicted to mask, this is the most radical form of freedom. The solution to split identity is not exposure, it is not punishment, it is not suspicion, it is integration. Integration means one life instead of two, desire that can be spoken, truth that doesn't require cover, masculinity that doesn't fear the feminine, and femininity that doesn't abandon itself. No, it's not necessarily about exposure. It's like I know men that are and they'll never admit it, and it's just like, is it my responsibility? I don't know. Like, I'm not going around and it's just like I just wanna teach about it here, and, I'm not just going to, like, go around and you can't. I mean, it's like, what do you do? It's just like, be aware of it, look for the red flags, don't get caught up in it yourself, like, educate women, educate people. I think men are extremely more aware than women are about this topic. It just depends on the situation, so that's kinda like what I meant about that. So, this is not just a men's issue, it's not just a women's issue. It is a human developmental issue created by collapsed containers and inherited shame. The future doesn't need louder callouts. It needs stronger inner coherence. So, like, I don't like seeing women, like, swinging to the extreme of just not talking to men, hating men, like, I just don't wanna see extremes, and this is kind of extreme. I mean, lying and manipulation and living double lives, like, it is kind of extreme, and it's like, I hardly blame women for, you know, that's just not the answer. It's not the answer. It's we need to be more balanced, and I don't know exactly what the answer is, obviously, but I think just awareness helps. So, when people are integrated, they don't need deception, they don't need masks, they don't need to borrow power from secrecy, and they don't need to steal time from others to stabilize themselves. The work ahead is not to hunt shadows. It's to build containers again, internally, relationally, and culturally. And that work begins the same place it always does, with honesty that doesn't require performance, with boundaries that protect dignity, and with the courage to live one life instead of two. So, I stumbled back and forth all over this video. I do apologize. I had many different notes over the course of almost a year or so on this topic, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna do this video or not. I've been debating it forever, and I just felt like starting with this video tonight. I have many other videos that I want to do, so I'm going to put this video in my Toxic Masculine and Feminine series. I just deeply care about power dynamics, the masculine and feminine polarity. I care about the nervous system integration. Like, I deeply, deeply care. It's like I can empathize still. Um, it's just sad. It's sad. It's sad on every level, and I just wish that people could just be themselves. And some down low men are not actually gay. They're just extremely emotionally stunted and mature. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, the comments are probably going to be absolutely wild on this. So keep it mature, please. I will be reading all of the comments. Just please keep it mature. No hate, no shame. And anyways, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.